Okay, so this just happened like literally an hour ago. I'm still shaking, and I need to type this out before I talk myself into thinking it was nothing. Because right now, it's not nothing. It started around 8 p.m. I was scrolling through my phone, half watching some true crime doc my algorithm decided I needed, when the power cut. Not unusual here. We get flickers all the time, but this was a full blackout. Pitch black. No street lights, no porch lamps, just the faint blue glow of my dying phone battery. I figured it'd come back on in a few minutes. Spoiler, it didn't. That's when the barking started. You know how sometimes one dog barks and it sets off a chain reaction? This wasn't that. It was all of them, everywhere at once. Howling, yelping, the kind of noises that make your spine feel like ice. My neighbor's German Shepherd, Duke, sounded like he was trying to chew through his fence. I cracked the blinds, thinking maybe a coyote was prowling or something, but the street was dead silent, except for the chaos, of course. No movement, just darkness. I texted the group chat.
Anyone else's power out? Dogs losing their minds.
My buddy Jake replied first.
Yeah, whole block's dark. Dogs here too. Freaky.
Then a minute later.
Wait, you hear that? Hear what?
I sent back.
Like, whistling?
I didn't hear whistling, but I did hear something else. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate crunching over the gravel in the empty lot next to my house. I froze. The lot's overgrown, full of weeds and trash. No one goes there. Grabbed my flashlight, the one that I keep for power outages, but really for paranoid midnight bathroom trips, and pointed it out the window. The beam caught a figure standing at the edge of the lot. Tall, hoodie up, facing away from me, just still. The dogs were screaming now. Duke's barks turned shrill, almost panicked. Then the figure started walking. Not towards the street, but into the lot, vanishing into the shadows. My flashlight wasn't strong enough to follow. I ducked away from the window, heart hammering. When I looked again, they were gone. Group chat blew up. Mrs. Ramirez from down the street posted,
Stay inside. Lock your doors.
Someone else,
Saw a man in my backyard. Called cops, but they're taking forever.
I decided to check the backyard myself. That was a mistake. I crept out the back door, flashlight off, phone in hand. The air felt thick, like right before a storm. No wind, no crickets, just the dogs still howling. My phone screen cast enough glow to see the gate was open, a gate I always latch, and there were footprints in the mud, fresh, leading toward my shed. I noped back inside, deadbolted the door, and tried to laugh it off. You're 28, not 12, I told myself. Probably a raccoon, but unfortunately raccoons don't wear boots. Around 9:30 p.m., the neighborhood Facebook page posted about a suspicious person in a hoodie knocking on doors, asking for help finding his dog. No one answered, obviously, but here's the thing. The sightings were all over the place. North end, south end, like the guy was teleporting. Then around 10, the dogs stopped. All of them, all at the exact same time. The silence was worse. I was in my kitchen, chugging water like it had calmed me down, when I saw it. A shadow passing by the side window. Too fast to be real, but deliberate. I spun around, flicked the flashlight. Nothing. And then I heard the knocking. 3 slow raps on the front door. Not aggressive, but patient. Like whoever it was knew I was home. I didn't move, didn't breathe. My Ring camera was useless with the power out, so I just stood there staring at the door. Knocking again. I peeked through the peephole. Pitch black, like something was covering it. I backed away as quietly as I could and called 911. The dispatcher said they'd send someone. I waited. 5 minutes later, my motion sensor solar lights in the backyard flared on. They're bright, too bright, and there in the center of the light was the hooded figure, facing the house, head tilted like a dog hearing a new sound. I dropped to the floor and crawled to the kitchen, turned off my flashlight. When I dared to look again, the backyard was dark. The solar lights were dead. All of them. The cops never found anyone, not a soul. Power came back around 11. The dogs stayed quiet. But here's the kicker. When I checked the Ring camera footage this morning, the battery had drained completely during the blackout. No video, nothing. And Mr. Ramirez just posted,
Anyone else's backyard light's broken. All mine are smashed.
I'm not going outside tonight. Okay, so this just happened last night, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. I need to get this out there because, honestly, I don't know what to do next. Maybe someone here has had a similar experience or can talk me down from buying 50 pounds of salt and a flamethrower on Amazon. It started around 9 p.m. I was binge watching some true crime docs. Mistake number 1, when the power in my entire building cut out. Not unusual for this complex. Landlord's kind of a cheapskate. Wiring's probably held together by duct tape and wishful thinking. But here's the thing. The emergency lights in the hallways flickered on, casting this sickly green glow. You know the ones. They're supposed to make you feel safe, but they just turn everything into a horror movie set. I grabbed my phone, my flashlight, and texted the apartment group chat.
Anyone else's power out?
My neighbor, Jen, replied instantly.
Yep, whole block's dark. Con Ed truck just rolled up outside.
Relief, right? Just a normal outage. I cracked a beer, lit some candles, and decided to enjoy the ambiance. Then I started hearing something weird. Not the usual creaks and groans of an old building. This was more deliberate, like something dragging itself along the hallway carpet, slow and heavy. I froze, phone aimed at my door like a weapon. The sound stopped right outside my apartment. No shadow under the door, no breathing, just silence. After a few minutes, I talked myself into checking the peephole. Nothing there, hallway empty. But when I looked down, I saw streaks on the carpet. Wet, glistening streaks, like something had been dragged through a puddle. The emergency lights hummed, stretching the shadows of the exit signs into long, spindly fingers, and for a second I swear one of those shadows twitched. I went back inside, deadbolted the door, and texted Jen.
You hear anything weird out there?
Her reply?
Just Mr. Haskins in 4B yelling about his fridge, why?
Mr. Haskins, right. The guy who stares at the mailroom wall for 20 minutes every afternoon. Totally normal. Around midnight, the dragging noise came back, louder and closer this time. It was accompanied by a smell, sulfur and burnt hair. My candles started flickering like something was breathing on them, even though the windows were shut. Then my phone died. All my electronics, actually. Even my analog clock stopped. I'm not a paranormal person. I blame raccoons, or meth heads. But then I heard the knocking. Not on my door, but on my ceiling. From the apartment above me, apartment 5C, which has been empty for 6 months. I stood up on a chair and pressed my ear to the ceiling, heart jackhammering. The knocking sped up, frantic, erratic, before stopping abruptly. That's when I noticed the cold. Not AC broke cold, but breath-stealing cold. My candle flame stretched sideways like something was pulling the air toward the hallway door. And the shadows weren't right. The emergency light that seeps in under my door usually casts a thin green line. Now it was black. Pitch black and moving, swirling like oil in water. I did what any rational person would do. I hid in the bathroom with a kitchen knife and a can of Febreze. Around 3 a.m. the power came back. Lights blazed on, the AC whirred to life, and my phone exploded with texts. Jen.
You alive?
Me.
Define alive.
But here's where it gets worse. This morning I went to check the hallway. The wet streaks were gone, no smell, nothing like that. But when I talked to Jen, she mentioned something offhand.
Oh, Mr. Haskins left last night. Saw him carrying a big suitcase to his car. Looked excited?
I didn't tell her about the suitcase I saw later in the dumpster. The one leaking dark fluid, or the fact that apartment 5C's door is now slightly ajar with a trail of that same fluid leading inside. And I definitely didn't tell her that when I looked up at my ceiling last night, the knocking was coming from above me. Edit 1. Okay, so maintenance just checked 5C. They say it's empty. No signs of anything, but the super won't make eye contact with me anymore. And the emergency lights? They're all burnt out now. Every single one. Edit 2. Power's out again. The shadows under my door are moving. I don't think it's the lights this time. Edit 3. There's something banging on my door, and the smell's back. This happened last fall. I'd booked a cabin out in the middle of nowhere. Maine, I think. Doesn't really matter. Point is, it was one of those digital detox rentals. No Wi-Fi, spotty cell service, just a wood stove and a lot of pine trees. I'd been there a couple nights, reading and hiking, totally normal, until the storm hit. It was one of those autumn thunderstorms that rolls in like it's angry. The power flickered twice around dusk and then died completely. No big deal. I lit some candles, cracked a beer, and sat by the window. At first, all I heard was just rustling, like something big moving through the underbrush. I figured it was a deer or something, but then it stopped and something else replaced it. A low hum, Not mechanical, not organic, just a vibration, one pure tone. It wasn't coming from one direction either. It felt like the woods themselves were humming. My neck prickled. I tried to laugh it off. Wind through the trees? But the air was eerily still. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out onto the porch. Mist hung in the beam, and the hum got louder. Then from the tree line, a crack, like a branch snapping underfoot. I swung the light towards it. Nothing, but the humming sharpened, almost a whine, and then I heard footsteps. Not animal footsteps. These were slow and deliberate, like boots on gravel. My flashlight shook.
Hello?
I called out. No answer, but the footsteps stopped. Then the humming stopped too. Silence, thick and suffocating. I backed inside and locked the door, shoved the chair under the knob too. I sat there for hours, listening. Around 2 a.m. the rain started again. That's when the knocking began. A few raps on the window behind me. Not frantic, polite almost. I didn't turn around, I just froze. The knocking repeated, slower this time. Then nothing. When I finally mustered the courage to look, there was nothing but my own reflection in the black glass. The next morning the power was still out. I decided to hike to the main road, maybe flag down a ranger. Halfway there I found the tent. It was this old canvas thing collapsed under a pine tree. No gear inside, just a moldy sleeping bag and children's shoes. Tiny, rain-rotted sneakers. I left there fast. I left pretty fast. But here's where it gets worse. That night the storm came back. I was in bed, flashlight in hand, when the humming returned. Louder, angrier, and with it, voices. No discernible words, just murmurs. Dozens of them, overlapping, rising from the woods. I pressed my face to the window. Shadows moved between the trees. Not shapes, just darker patches in the dark, gliding. Then, of course, my flashlight died. I fumbled for candles, but my hands were shaking too hard. The murmurs swelled, closer now, and underneath it all that damn hum drilling into my skull. I don't know how long I crouched there, but at some point something scratched the door. Long, slow drags like claws testing the wood. I didn't sleep. At dawn I threw my stuff in my car and peeled out. As I hit the highway, I glanced in the rear view. In the back seat, wedged between my bags, was a small muddy sneaker. I chucked it at a gas station dumpster. Was there some creep messing with me? A very intelligent bear? A bad dream? I don't know. But I'll tell you this. I still hear that hum sometimes, late at night when the power goes out.